Hi, Isha.
Namaste, Adab. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much. Namaste and adab to you too. हमें बहुत बहुत खुशी है आज. I will try to speak a little Hindi जो मुझे आता है. That you have agreed to be a part of this brilliant show that we call as Candidate Cicerone Live. And आपने वहाँ से दुबई से यहाँ पे join कर रहे हो तो I'm like super excited. I've been following your page, which is Desi Drapes and Kitabi Jugnu, and it gives me so much of pleasure to tell people that you have to know this personality who is with us today. And I didn't think there was any other better time than today to kind of keep rolling this discussions around. So welcome to the show, Isha. And before I move on, let me give people an idea of what Isha does and what are we going to talk about. So we all have been reeling under the pandemic currently as well, globally, and it has all made us pause a little bit. You know, in one way or other, हम लोग सोचना शुरू कर दिए हैं कि whether the past life that we were living, which was about 4 months ago, the decadent lifestyle or the fast lifestyle, supersonic lifestyle that we were living, was it all right, or do we all need to slow down? And if we need to slow down, then how does one do that, you know? And some of us were lucky enough to understand this whole idea in last 4 months and make changes. Some of us are still struggling to understand कि change अगर करा जाए तो भी कहाँ से शुरू करा जाए अगर lifestyle में किसी को change करना भी है तो. And so to talk about all of these things, because the slow life reminds me or you or anybody of a time which was yesteryear, of mom's time or grandmother's time, you know. And so the whole dialogue with Isha Priya. Isha Priya Singh is an accessory designer. She's a qualified accessory designer who did it from NIFT Ahmedabad, by the Gandhinagar, by the way. So she has stayed here for a couple of years, and she's worked with brilliant jewelry brands in her past career. She is a writer as well. And let me not get lost there. She's worked with brands like Viren Bhagat, Ganjam, and Her Story. She runs 2 pages on Instagram for which she's like super famous. One is Desi Drapes. You can see her wearing this gorgeous sari right now. And she's known for her aesthetic sense and her sari sensibilities, and not just the aesthetics, but she also brings in a lot of value addition in terms of knowledge, in terms of weaves and all of it, the history part of it. She also has another page by the name of Kitabi Jugnu. So incidentally, Isha is from Lucknow. And so she talks about language and literature on that page, and brings in conversations around Urdu, Awadhi, and other such interests of hers. So today we are going to talk to Isha about things which kind of matter to us a lot more in current times, that is sustainability, a buzzword, but it needs a lot of reflection. So tell me, Isha, आपकी जर्नी कहाँ से शुरू हुई? You know, आप स्लो लाइफ की तरफ मुड़े हैं. How and when did it start?
सबसे पहले तो मैं आपका शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहूंगी कि इतना अच्छा आपने जो है तारुफ इंट्रोडक्शन दिया मेरा, और फिर हम इस बातचीत पर अब लौटते हैं. So this is going to be a longish answer because it's been a long journey. I think it was around 2008 and 9 when, actually 9 and 10, when I was training to be a faculty at NIFT Delhi, and then I was working as a faculty at NIFT Raebareli. During these years is when we started hearing the word sustainability a lot, particularly in the context of architecture and product design. So it was still a concept in its nascent stages and nobody really knew what it meant. But I do remember these conversations on campus where, the faculty would constantly talk about things like, okay, but what is sustainable? Is it necessarily eco-friendly, or is everything eco-friendly sustainable? So I remember having this particular conversation where we were discussing the kulhars, that okay, the kulhar is eco-friendly because it's made out of natural materials and it decomposes, degrades faster, and it degrades completely. But it is not necessarily sustainable because it is not recyclable. Once you have baked that earth, you cannot reuse it to recreate another full earth. So it ultimately goes into,
Yeah.
it goes waste. So it's because it's not reusable and recyclable, it is not really sustainable. So it's a complex concept, and I think most of the world is still sort of struggling with the definition and going back and forth and trying to understand what it means. But that was the first time I heard of this particular concept. And then later, of course, it did, conversations around it were going on everywhere, but I don't think we related it to fashion so much.
Right.
We actually did not connect it so much to what we were wearing. Sustainability became more about architecture and city planning and product design, but nobody was connecting it to fashion as such. Then around 2015 or so, I had started wearing a lot of Indian textiles. Of course, I had a phase of wearing them, and then I went to fast fashion, then I'd come back. And I started wearing a lot of Indian textiles and understanding what slow fashion is, started making those conscious choices. But I was still very skeptical of calling it sustainable because I was shopping so much and I was, investing so much into it. And still, I think sustainability was not something I was connecting to my wardrobe. I was in Bombay at that time, and this whole garbage problem that we have in India and also elsewhere, everywhere in the world, but in India, I think it's just more visible because we have the waste management issues, so we tend to see it more. So this problem of garbage, and particularly so much plastic on the garbage heaps and in the landfills, bothered me a lot, and I started turning towards a life which was plastic free. So in terms of my wardrobe, I was moving towards Indian crafts and more slower kind of fashion. In my life in general, I was trying to go plastic free and trying to take all kinds of steps to make my life plastic free. But I don't think I actually joined the dots at that time, or I tried to connect them or bring them all together. It was in 2018 when I was leaving Bombay. I was trying to move to Dubai. Is when I realized that I have accumulated so much that it's become unmanageable for me. Like I right now own so many clothes for one reason or the other that it's become impossible for me to manage them. And every time I would open my wardrobe, it felt like a terrible burden, like everything was resting on the top of my head. And then I had to pack up everything, and I gave away so much. I gave away things without even thinking about them. So when I went through that process of moving, and I realized how much I had cluttered my life, and then I moved to, I was in Delhi for about a month's time. It was like a transition phase when I didn't have most of my luggage. It was elsewhere, and I was stuck in Delhi for a while. That's when, I had limited number of clothes, and I could actually recycle, restyle them, repair them, and it worked out fine. And that's when I started asking myself that do I actually need so much? So that's how the whole questioning started, and one thing led to the others. When I moved to Dubai finally, I have lived here before between 2012 and 14 also. But at that time, I was at the peak of my fast fashion phase, and this material world attracted me. But after this entire journey, when I returned to Dubai, everything felt so jarring, with so much on your face consumerism that it made me question things even more. And then the Fashion Revolution week happened in April. That's when I started reading up more and more about sustainability. And I finally watched the documentary True Cost on Netflix. And that was actually, I think, the tipping point is when things took a drastic turn for me. And I started questioning everything that I was doing, right from the page that I have, Desi Drapes, as you've already mentioned, what I was doing with the page, and what content was I actually trying to create? Why was I doing it? And so you would notice that I have taken a step backwards, and I no longer post so often on Desi Drapes. So it does exist as a platform, and I do use it, but it's no longer. I'm no longer actively posting on it every day because I have started feeling that even posting pictures every day is not a sustainable practice if you look at it that way. What is it that I'm trying to say by sharing pictures every day? So this has been my journey in short, and I'm still trying to understand the concept of sustainability. I don't think anybody can claim to be leading a perfectly sustainable life, and that's all right. We are all trying, and so still, a lot of back and forth keeps happening. And with the pandemic, I think a lot of, at least in terms of living plastic free, I've had to take like a step backwards, because so many things now which were available plastic free are right now not feasible or not available, or it's just not easy to get them. So it keeps going back and forth, but as long as I have that consciousness within me now, I think somewhere I will sort of go back to where I was or go further from there. So yeah.
So tell me, what are the small changes that you have made in last 3 years? From 2018 to 2020, I see you have made quite. You've taken baby steps towards it, and this is something which will help a lot of people also who want to make that shift but do not essentially know where to start from, because everything is just so overwhelming in the over consumerist world.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is to first change the mindset. What happens is that suddenly there are these buzzwords being thrown at us, and we start thinking that, okay, so now everybody is doing sustainability, so we've got to do sustainability. I don't think that should be the reason, because then it becomes the same thing ultimately. Then it's just the herd mentality. What we were doing for materialism, we start doing it for decluttering. You should declutter, you should go minimal only if you really want to. And that change in mindset is required, because I come across so many people who come to me, because I've been having some talks, not recently, but like before the pandemic struck. People would come and say, okay, so what are some slow fashion brands that I can buy from? What are some affordable, sustainable brands that I can buy from? And I just look at them and say, but that defeats the whole purpose, because the idea is that you change your consumerist mindset. The idea is to first analyze our own consumption patterns and say that I need to consume lesser and lesser and lesser is more important, I guess. If we're just switching from fast fashion to slow fashion and buying 10 sustainable dresses from a particular brand, then that's not sustainable. That's exactly why I'm still trying to understand the idea of sustainable life bloggers or influencers, because if you're going to post every day about a brand, then you are eventually influencing people into buying more, and that itself is not sustainable. So I guess that first change needs to happen in the head, where one sits down and analyzes and thinks that, okay, do I really want to lead this life? Because it's a commitment. It's a big lifestyle change. Am I ready to take am I ready to take go through these pains, that you have to go through every day? Because when you start changing, even that uh, exercise of picking up your own bag, your own cloth bag from the house and going for grocery shopping is difficult. Even that first step can be difficult, and remembering to do it can be difficult. So that commitment has to come first. And of course, like you said, baby steps matter the most. If we are going to try to change our entire lifestyle in one day, then that's not going to happen. It's going to be overwhelming, and then we will end up giving up. So small changes matter. And I think in general, for everything that we are going to buy, it's important to sit down and think, do I really need it? Like, it can start from even grocery. Like, I've seen that when I go to these huge grocery stores in Dubai, where you have, like, even if you want to buy a pack of sugar, there are some 300 types of sugar. So, and it can be so overwhelming, because the packaging is attractive, the lighting of the store is such, the way the products are displayed, the visual merchandising is such that you tend to buy things that you don't need. So the first thing is to actually make a list of things that you want to buy, and then go and focus on So this is a small example. It applies to everything. Like even for things like eating out. Like there was a boom in the hospitality industry in India about 6-7 years ago, 10 years ago, and then now it became so big, and it's going to suffer, of course, because of the pandemic. But I realized that there were so many times when I was going to eat out just for the sake of it. Oh, it's the weekend and I have to go out to eat. No, nothing should be a have to. So I guess that's the first change that we need to make for everything, whether it's food that we're eating, the clothes we're wearing, the household products that we're buying, or the home decor that we're buying, even gifting. I think sometimes we gift things out of peer pressure. For everything, I guess we have to start understanding and questioning, do I really need it? If one starts with this question, I guess half the battle is won, because then you can easily think of little steps and little changes to make. So the changes that I have made, I think, have stemmed from this thought. And because for different people, it's going to be different. So I don't think that one solution fits everyone, but it can begin with meditating or reflecting on the general choices that we make about where we are spending the money. And it's not about having a lot of money. You can be the richest person, but because when you spend money, you are making a choice for the kind of world that you want to live in. So I guess it's everybody's responsibility whether you have those resources or not.
Sure, sure. I think I really liked how you reflected on the part about need, because that's the primary thing. Once identification of need is there and what is a want, the choices become much more simpler, you know. So do you think, going back to the days, the reason why I started the conversation was about going back to the moms and the grandmoms and the entire lifestyle? When you think about it, they owning only certain number of pair of clothes, they being very creative in the way they wore their clothes or the way they preserved their things, whether it was clothing, whether it was pantry, kitchen, the way they kind of brought about changes. Do you think that is the way forward, and a certain sect of people are really moving towards that right now?
Actually, it's not our mother's generation, it's more our grandmother's generation that we need to look up to, because our mother's generation, the one which was born in the newly independent India, for their initial years, they saw some kind of scarcity, but when they reached their midlife, is when liberalization happened and all these big brands came into India, and then shopping malls sprung up everywhere, and then so they are the generation who actually started this whole thing, getting attracted to consumerism. They are the ones, because they lived in scarcity, and then suddenly they saw uh, they saw so many options, and they saw availability, and that's when they completely lost it. Like, I call them the Tupperware generation. They saw Tupperware, and then they got so excited about those colorful plastic boxes that they would invest in these dabbas when they didn't even need them. Like, I remember my mother-in-law once gave me Tupperware dabbas which were this tiny, and I looked at them and I said, what am I going to keep in this? And she said, no, you can keep some chutney. I said, you have unnecessarily bought this and because you got so tempted. So that whole plastic obsession with plastic, because it didn't break, it was easy to maintain, it was colorful, it was different, it looked convenient. That is a generation which I call the polythene and Tupperware dabba generation, because they completely, they lost their way some way. And of course, then because they were making these changes in their life, we grew up with that midway somewhere,
Right,
not in our childhood.
right.
So, like you said, our grandmother's generation, they had a life which was definitely inherently sustainable. But their situation was different from ours. They were not making these choices consciously. They were forced to do so because they had limited resources. Everybody at that time in India, fewer people were as rich as they are today. They didn't have such disposable incomes as people do now. So,
True.
because they had limited resources, they adopted those methods. So we definitely need to look up to them. But we are different from them. We are making these choices consciously.
Right.
We are living a life and then choosing that one. They did not have a choice. But certainly, like my mother tells me that my grandmother, my nani, she used to make her soaps at home, and she used to make even the washing they used to wash their clothes with Rita soaps, and she would make the Rita soaps, the soap nut soaps at home. And you know, one day was dedicated in a month to make soaps for the entire month, and then she would just make them and keep them. Similarly, you know, they used to embroider their cushion covers, their table covers. They would actually sit in, some of them knew how to fabric paint, so they used to paint their bed sheets, their curtains. They knew how to sew, they knew how to mend their clothes. So sometimes they used to sew clothes even at home, and they used to knit so often. So DIY was a part of their life, and that's when they did not have time. They did not have so much time to actually think about things which bother us so much today, and then they disturb us, because we are not involved in great hobbies. We are all involved in passive hobbies, and we are actually buying everything from the market. So we have so much spare time also. Along with disposable income, we have disposable time, and that's why we're wasting so much away on doing things which don't matter. So I guess that those are very important things to take from them, that along with the DIY, which is certainly more economical, it is less wasteful, it ensures that you are not buying so much plastic because it's packaging free, you're doing it at home. And also because it's chemical free, a lot of it, there are no microplastics in it, because most of the DIY is going to be from natural raw materials. So along with all these nice things, and apart from being sustainable, it's also a great hobby to have,
True.
and it's a good pastime, and it keeps you mentally occupied and also healthy, I guess.
Absolutely. And which is one thing I noticed during the lockdown, that all of us became a hobbyist of some sort, you know. We
Absolutely.
discovered that we had so much of time in hand and we wanted to creatively have the outlet. And so everybody, like I see so many things trending right now, whether it is visible mending, going back to mending your clothes, to doing like, you know, doing your tie and dye and bandhani and things like that, probably at home, or making your coffee tables at home or papers at home, to probably I don't know, there are so many things, the Arita soap that you're talking about, you know. I mean, now people are going back to all of those things, and it is very heartening in a way that people are realizing that it is time to slow down, probably, you know, because you
Yeah,
have the option to choose. Why not probably choose better?
exactly. Yeah. Because when you start leading a zero waste lifestyle, actually, so the first thing that you do is you try to make a lot of things at home, because whatever you buy from the market is going to come in a packaging. Like if you're going to buy a face scrub, no, even if it's a 100% natural face scrub, it's going to come in a packaging. And I've seen that even the brands who claim to make 100% natural products free of chemicals and microplastics, they also package their stuff in plastic bags. They would say, okay, send them back to us. And of course, there is a transportation involved, so there is going to be a carbon footprint of that. So the best thing is to, so I've tried one thing, I just share that, and then we can go to the next thing that we have to discuss. I started keeping my pomegranate peels, and I just dried them, and you can leave it on your dining table. You don't even have to sun dry it. And after about a week's time, all you have to do is just crush it into a fine powder, and then whenever you want to wash your face, mix some rose water with it, and that's it. It becomes a scrub. So
Wow.
why do you have to actually? So it's a zero waste recipe, because your pomegranate peel, which you were anyway going to throw or put in your compost, gets used, and you don't even have to buy like a scrub. And then, so these are the small changes that all of us can actually try to make, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, which is brilliant. So if you were to give tips to people, you know, like, you know, let's say 5 tips or 10 tips to, for a beginner like myself, let me say I'm a beginner. And so what does one kind of keep noticing when you say that you have to notice your wants and needs? That is a very meditative and a reflective question. But if you tell me like, Falguni, you are going to do this, you know, this is your better choice. Can you tell me what would be the better choice tips for me and
I
everyone?
I think firstly, we need to start understanding, sort of become conscious of how the market actually tries to play its games on us. So we have to become aware of how marketing campaigns try to play with our psychology, how impulse buying is actually sort of, works on us. So we have to become conscious of those things also. You see an ad and you like something on it doesn't mean that you actually have to go and buy it. So the first thing is to stop impulse buying.
Right.
Even if you feel that you need something, you have to see, okay, do I need it for today? Do I need it? Will I need this 3 months later? Will I need this 6 months later? Or am I just going to buy it for the moment, like it, and for a few days, and then it's going to lie somewhere in the house? Like this happens a lot with clothes, also happens a lot with home decor products. And I've seen that this happens a lot during random mall visits and also sometimes during travel. Like what we did when me and my husband, we started traveling often. He told me once that we are not going to buy random souvenirs for the house, because these are things that are tourist traps. They have just been made in factories and they have been brought to this market. So when the tourists come, they think, okay, I have come here, so I have to buy something. So I will now go, I'm going to pick this up and take it. No, if you really like something, you think where you're going to keep it in the house and for how long. What is going to be the shelf life of this souvenir? And if you think it goes, then you take it. Otherwise, the memories that we are taking from here are enough.
Sure.
So I guess that making a conscious choice to uh, uh, take from life experiences, memories is more important, because objects, no matter how much we say, are not going to become the best memories or not going to become the best experience.
Sure.
So this is also, of course, meditative. Then, like I said, smaller changes. I guess what beginners need to do is to sit down and define sustainability for them. What is it that is sustainability for them? Because every life is different. So what is sustainability for them? What do they want to sustain? Do they want to sustain a tradition? Do they want to sustain a particular craft? Do they want to sustain a language? Do they want to sustain the resources of the planet? Do they want to sustain the environment? What is it that is of the greatest importance for them? And how can they do that? If they are interested in sustaining a tradition, then instead of saying, lamenting, "Arey, ab to ye hota hi nahi, ab to ye koi nahi karta," you have to start doing it. Like I say that so many people, when they meet me, they say, "Arey, ab to koi namaste nahi karta." I say, "To aap kyun nahi karte?" So we have to actually start with picking things that we want to sustain, and then start from there, treat it like a starting point. And I guess after a while, then most of us figure it out.
Sure.
So defining what sustainability is, and then understanding how the market is trying to pull us away from leading that sustainable life, not giving into those temptations and those traps, and then sort of trying to understand that in life, experiences and memories are more important than objects. So these are a few things we can begin with.
Interestingly, you spoke about market. Market brings me to social media, which we all have been using to the fullest. And that brings me to this pertinent question, because we are in fashion, we're talking about fashion and lifestyle. Outfit of the day post, and what is the whole impact of outfit of the day post that is there on psyche of people? And what do you think that is perpetuating in the society right now? Everybody is posting pictures, including myself, but we all hold different belief system. What's your idea of outfit of the day and then the repeat wears?
I started my page in 2016, November, but I was not regular. I used to post once a week or once in 2 weeks, once in 3 weeks. Whenever I dressed up, I used to take pictures and post. So for a few months, it went on like that. It was only in April 2017 when I started posting regularly, which meant every day or 5 days a week. That was also a time, 2017 was that sweet spot when Instagram was promoting accounts, and they were doing it deliberately. And a lot of people who were consistent in that period and who were the first people to have unique accounts. Like, let's say when I started, there weren't too many people who were posting about saris on Instagram. There were lots of sari groups on Facebook, but not so many on Instagram or desi wear, basically. So these things sort of happened together: Instagram promoting accounts, me posting every day, being consistent, content being fairly fresh. And that's when the account started growing. When you start getting followers and likes and you start getting comments, that validation can become addictive. When there was no social media, there was still, there used to be social circles, clubs, and circuits where people looked for validation.
Yeah.
But on social media, it amplified because so many more people could give you that validation. Right. And on social media, it became easier to access, and then you wanted it every day. I think that addiction and that constant need for validation is what drives all this. Right. Because when you wear a new outfit or a newly styled outfit every day is when people are going to say, oh wow, this is looking great, you're looking nice, and so on and so forth. And then it drives consumerism. It becomes a vehicle of that, because if you wear the same outfit of the day, if it's going to be the same every day, then nobody is going to comment on it. So obviously you're going to do something new each day, right? Even if you repeat. So that's when I started repeating clothes, because I also realized that I don't have so many clothes, but I want to post every day because that is the only way the account is going to grow. So that's when I started repeating. But then I also realized that even if you repeat clothes, newer people are going to join you every day. And some people don't notice things. They don't observe things. So they don't understand that you're repeating clothes. They will see one new thing in your outfit and they think that you have so many clothes. And then that becomes a lifestyle that they want to emulate, a lifestyle that they want to live. And that is, I think, a very toxic goal to give to anybody, because that's not bringing you happiness either. Now, I remember that I did that. Now I've stopped it completely because I don't see the point in it. I'm completely bored and I don't even know why I should do it now, because I'm no longer interested in growing my account now that I'm not making any commercial gains out of it. So I don't know why I was doing it. So I stopped. But a lot of people, they think that this is the life to have. This is the goal. Wardrobe goals, hashtag wardrobe goals. Now, I remember that sometimes it used to be such a burden because I was in no mood to dress up, in no mood to get pictures clicked, in no mood to smile for the camera, but I would still do it because I just had to post. So it became such a compulsion that it was no longer pleasurable. And that's when I thought, this is like, it's like a job. Why am I doing this,
Like, it's a job only paid in terms of likes and comments.
Yeah, it's become like a chore. Why am I doing this? So, and one thing happened which really made me question what I was doing. I was working in Bombay with a company for the entire phase when I stayed in Bombay. I was working with one company, and it was, of course, in the later 2 years of my stint there, when I was used to get clothes from different brands and pages and businesses, and I would wear them and then go to work and get pictures clicked in the office, and everybody used to see that. So one of the days, and every time I would enter the office, there used to be a lot of these office moshis. They're called moshis in Mumbai. So they used to be the office help, and some security guards and office boys used to be there. So I would enter and they would look at me, and then I would go up to my space. So one of the moshis once came to me and said, "Madam, वो जो guard है ना, वो बोलता है ये ईशा मैडम तो रोज नए कपड़े पहन के आती है, सही है." And it somewhere, hit me so hard that, is this the goal that I'm giving to people who cannot afford this lifestyle? They think this is what leading a good life is. No, it's not. So it made me question so many things. And now when I look back at that incident, I think it changed a lot in me. And just because I can afford it, they don't know that I'm not buying these clothes. Correct. I'm getting them from somewhere. But even if, I could, even just because I can afford it, or just because I can get it free from somewhere, doesn't mean that I should do it, because it's actually setting a very wrong example for people. That's when they get desperate, some people, and they think that no, I have to wear new clothes like this person, and that's when they try to make really unsustainable choices, because they are going to constantly look for cheaper and cheaper options. They
Correct.
would just look at quantity. They will stop believing in quality then.
It
So
drives
I guess,
consumerism.
yeah, this OTD is a dangerous kind of a thing to do, and that's exactly why I don't do it anymore, because I realized the perils of it.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
So, Isha, we are almost done with the time, but I still want to ask you that one last question. We are going to make it very quick. It is
Okay.
about your love for Awadh, Urdu, and sustainability and repeat wear. Four of the things together. And I see there is a common thread, but would you like to talk about that common thread?
I think the common thread is that all these ideas are desi, and they are from the roots, from the soil of the subcontinent, and that is one thing that I relate to the most. So everything, you know, that is indigenous, everything which is originally desi is what attracts me the most. So Awadhi, being my language which is spoken in the region that I belong to, it's completely earthy and rooted. Urdu, again, a language born in India, born, and then it of course got refined in the region that I belong to. The city that I belong to is where it saw its zenith. It's a refined language, but again, born from the Desi soil. The ideas of sustainability, the ideas of repeating, they were all, you know, there is a very interesting qissa from Awadh, which is that sometimes ladies, you would see this in some old Muslim social films like Chaudhry Ka Chand.
Hmm.
Ladies, you know, when they would meet at a party, like at a gathering, they used to exchange their dupattas. तो मेरा दुपट्टा पहन लो, मैं तुम्हारा. So it was like a swap. Now that swapping is what we are doing now, clothing swap. There are swap parties happening, and
Yeah,
in our, we were doing it like centuries ago.
yeah, right.
So that is, I think, you know, the whole rootedness is what binds all of this together, and that's exactly why I'm attracted to all of them, I think.
Brilliant. It has been such a pleasure speaking to you. I wish we would have more time because we would have spoken about so many more topics still, but we can
Yeah.
always continue it later. So, thank you so much for being on the show, Isha. It has been
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for the time and for this lovely discussion. It's always great to find somebody who's ready to hear what I have to say. So thank you. Shukriya.
And for all those who loved listening to Isha, you could go to Instagram and follow her page. There are two pages, one Desi J, which she says she's not keeping it very active. But in case you want to check that out, and the second is Kitabi Jugnu, where she talks about literature, Awadh, Urdu, and that is something which you might find very, very exciting. So keep watching what we are bringing to you every Wednesday on Candidate Cicerone Live, Gujarat's only fashion and lifestyle portal, which talks about issues that are generally not talked about. I will be seeing you next week, once again, the same time, 4 p.m. Till then, bye-bye.
Shukriya.
Bye.